Okay, well, let's get rolling here. Good evening. Happy holidays. I'm Andy Oak, the Director of Marketing at Planet Technologies, and welcome to the top 5 things you can do to protect your family online during the holidays and all year long. Before we get started on the presentation and introduce our speakers, I just want to do a little housekeeping and let you know that tonight's evening will go kind of like this. Our cameras have been turned off. We appreciate if you mute your microphones for now. We will take questions and open up the floor after the presentation of the top 5 list. And this event is being recorded just so everyone is aware. So without further delay, I'd like to introduce Andrew Keegan, our CTO at Planet Technologies, and James Yerby, our IT manager. Guys, why don't you take it away?
All right. Well, thank you very much, Andy. Let me share my screen now. Hopefully everybody can see my screen. Yes?
Yep, we're good.
Yep, good.
Awesome. So as Andy already said, happy holidays, everyone. And we want to, run this quick security awareness for the holiday season webcast to give you a little extra help because, as you probably know, this is the busiest time of the year, and not only for you, but for hackers as well. They take advantage of the fact that there is a surge in, online shopping activities, that people are traveling a lot, that they're under constant time pressure, and they take advantage of those things and, kind of catch you off guard. And we want to make sure that that never happens. So please stay alert, basically always, but especially during the holiday season. So first thing that we want to talk about has to do with public Wi-Fi's and making sure the websites that you're accessing are secure. Apparently my screen went away. Can you guys still see my screen?
Yes, you.
No, it turned off for some reason. James, try turning your camera off and see if Andrew's presentation pops back on.
Does that work? No. There we go.
Now we
Any
see
help?
it, Andrew.
So I had to turn off my camera.
All right. So public Wi-Fi and secure websites. Well, public Wi-Fi networks are inherently dangerous, especially if you're connecting to the network you don't know about. So exercise some common sense and caution. I mean, if you're in the mall, for example, and you're trying to connect to a Wi-Fi network to do some shopping or do something else, and the Wi-Fi network name is, I don't know, Apple Store, for example, just quickly look around to make sure that there is an Apple Store nearby. Hackers and bad actors often put up, fake Wi-Fi connection points to lure you in, to siphon off the traffic, to make sure that they can capture your passwords and credentials that you use for either shopping, online banking, and other things. So exercise some basic situational awareness. Also, during the holiday season, people travel quite a bit. When we travel, pretty much all of us have, mobile devices with them, mobile phone being probably the most used, but also tablets and other things. And often we find ourselves in an airport, for example, and the charge is running low, and we want to plug in into the USB port and charge up. Luckily, those charging stations are available just about anywhere nowadays. But be aware that it also presents certain dangers, that the ports that you're plugging in to charge can also be used to access your devices, to take the data off them or deposit some malware onto them. So the best thing to do, and probably the cheapest, is to have the charger from your device with you. Do not plug into the USB port, but instead plug into the electrical outlet. That way you know for sure that the only thing you're getting is power. There are also little gadgets that basically prevent data from being taken off your device. They're kind of data blockers, or you can even buy a special cable that does that. But that requires additional expenditure. It's much easier just to have your own charger with you. Don't use USB. Those are often compromised. Just plug it into the wall outlet and be done with it. Of course, when you go to shopping websites, make sure that it's a reputable site, hopefully the one that you've done some online shopping and business with before, and also verify that there is this little, green padlock, and the site address says HTTPS, which is a secure HTTP, and that way you will know that all the traffic traveling between you and the site you're trying to access is fully encrypted. And that way, if you are sending any information that can be considered sensitive, like, for example, information about your bank accounts or your credit card info, it will be protected in transit as well. So please be careful around Wi-Fi's, make sure that websites you're accessing are secure. And when charging your devices, just use some common sense, use wall outlets, don't use USB devices. James?
Number 2, stay updated and understand your shopping applications. Updating your operating system and software is one of the most important and easiest thing that you could do. When you update your operating system, this will help patch security flaws, install latest and greatest features of, for your software, helps increase efficiency, reduces costs by, instead of going out and buying a new system every couple of years, a simple update will help reduce that cost, and it increases productivity by making your software run smoothly and efficiently. Another thing that you should probably look out for is downloading apps. I know everybody likes, using apps for convenience. Make sure that you're using those apps directly from a reputable publisher. Like, for instance, if you're shopping at Target, make sure it's published by Target, or like gaming apps such as Nintendo or Xbox. So please keep your operating system update and your app secure.
All right. Well, probably a thing that is, no less important than making sure that you're using trusted websites and applications is to make sure that your passwords and other sensitive information is secure as well. Well, clearly, exercise some common sense rules like creating unique passwords, not reusing them, using hard to guess passwords whenever possible. Those are, best, security practices at any time, but especially, of course, during the holiday season. Also, those unique passwords and the hard to guess passwords, they also kind of hard to manage. People tend to forget them, and obviously writing them down on a piece of paper or somewhere else is not a good idea. So take advantage of things like password generators and managers. Password generators can help you create a randomized password. You just tell the generator how many characters to use, whether or not to use special characters or not. Click the button and it will generate a random password for you. You can then store it in a password manager, an application that will allow you to store all of those unique and hard to guess passwords and use them securely when you're shopping or doing other things online. We have provided some suggestions as to very good and reputable and well-known password managers. You see them at the bottom: LastPass, 1Password, Keeper, Dashlane. They're all very well regarded and all have the functionality that I just mentioned: ability to help you generate a secure password and ability to store it and use it securely. Obviously, don't write down those important pieces of information such as username or passwords on sticky notes, things of that nature. And protect other sensitive info, like your credit card information, for example. Don't store that information within any browser, even if you're prompted to do so. Those are not particularly secure means of doing that. And also remember that many websites and applications on the web, they leave like cookies to track your activities, to track your history, to see where you're going. So every now and then, just clear up your browser cache, delete the cookies, delete the history. You can set it up in pretty much any browser setting so it does it automatically. For example, when you close your browser, or you can do it manually, every other week, every month, whatever suits your needs. And of course, even though those secure passwords are great, we still recommend, whenever possible, use multi-factor authentication. It's usually something that sends a quick message to your phone via text message, or sometimes it gives you a call back to verify your identity, or you can use applications that are very well known. For example, Google Authenticator, Microsoft Authenticator, or a bunch of others that will give you a random code that you would need to enter to provide a second factor in this multi-factor authentication scheme, in addition to your password or a PIN number, for example. That's the most secure way to go about it. And with that said, back to you, James.
All right, thank you. Number 4, outsmart the scammers. So, this time of the year, we get a lot of emails, texts, and social media ads with discounts and special offers. And sometimes we don't read the email fully and we end up clicking, and then all of a sudden we get malware on our computer. So what we ask is just to make sure you read the emails and let's see, sorry. So be wary when opening an email, clicking on an ad, or responding to a text from someone you don't know or a site that you have not visited. Always, double check the source. Thank you.
A good practice indeed. And this was very quick and easy. So number 5, the last one on the list. When shopping, you clearly, need to expend some funds. Then, utilize the most secure, payment methods. Some of the most secure ones would probably be the ones such as like PayPal, Apple Pay, Google Pay. They add an extra level of protection to all your, online, shopping. Also, you can use, credit cards, of course, as well. Just use that instead of using your debit card. Your debit card is usually tied to your bank account. And if fraudulent transaction happens, it's usually a lot harder to reverse with your bank card or your debit card than it is with a credit card. Credit card companies, they're very well equipped to do those types of investigations, to actually detect fraud sometimes before it even happens, or to alert you of transactions that are, suspicious in nature. And also there are other capabilities, like, for example, you can use virtual credit card numbers. Pretty much, Visa, MasterCard, and Amex, for sure, offer that. It's an ability to generate a credit card number using your credit card account. A credit card number that is virtual and can only be used for one transaction and can never be used again. Many applications exist to help you do that. You generate that number, you complete the purchase, and even if that number is stolen by the criminal, it can never be used again, so it's of no use to them. So another, kind of quick method of making sure that your protection is up to par. And just keep in mind that however hard you try to protect your information and your transactions, sometimes bad things happen. So make sure to monitor, especially during the holiday season, your credit report and quickly respond to any, potentially, fraudulent things that you see there. Dispute those charges as quickly as possible and make sure your, credit history stays in good shape. So these are the top 5 that we wanted to mention to you guys, and we'll be putting this reference link into the chat window and sharing it separately along with the recording that we're doing right now. All the things that we've talked about, link to some helpful articles that give you the same types of tips, link to all the password managers that we have talked about, link to things like those, virtual credit card transaction options, for example, and to a few credit monitoring agencies. We're not trying to market any of this to you, so browse at your own leisure and exercise common sense. Use what works for you. And with that said, I wanted to say one more time, happy holidays to all of you from all of us. And do we have any questions, either in the Q&A section or you can probably unmute yourself and ask it verbally. I will leave it up to Andy to MC this section.
Okay, sure. If anyone does have any questions, Scott has raised his hand. Go ahead, Scott. What's your question?
Yeah, thank you very much for the presentation. It was great. You mentioned AV and something that's obviously necessary to have. Is there any free antivirus that you recommend out there, or is there anything to steer away from, or do you recommend paying for an AV? I know AVG's out there, some other solutions, or what comes with Microsoft. Is that the solution that you recommend, or do you have any feedback on that?
Sure. I'll be happy to kick it off, and James, feel free to add if you have some helpful suggestions. But yeah, we most definitely would recommend an antivirus or even a more complete anti-malware package, preferably from well-known vendors. Microsoft is definitely one of them. Nowadays, the basic defense is included with an operating system pretty much. All you need to do is make sure you apply those updates. Updates are not only to the software packages, but to detection signatures as well. So if new compromises are discovered, then those signatures will include them. So make sure you update on a regular basis and you will get the best protection. There are plenty of free and low-cost antivirus solutions out there. Generally speaking, they can be coming from all over the world. We would recommend, within the United States, to use the ones that are actually US-based. James, you have any suggestions?
Actually, you covered it. I know what we use is Windows Defender, so always make sure that your OS is up to date and patched. And if you're not sure how to do that, send a ticket to Service Desk, and I'll be more than happy to help you out.
So can I ask you then, as layering on to that, I'm getting a lot of prompts from Microsoft these days in terms of password and saving your password when you're using the internet and also saving your credit card information. Would you trust Microsoft as a means for using, locking in your password, saving it, or would you prefer using it in conjunction with LastPass or some other solution?
As a general rule of thumb, we would probably recommend using a dedicated solution such as LastPass, Dashlane, or one of those others that we have shown, or even beyond that. Just do your research. It's not necessarily that we put no trust in Microsoft or Google or any other vendor. It's just browsers even by themselves are not particularly secure. Lots of vulnerabilities nowadays that are being published are associated with browsers. So when you're prompted by Microsoft or Google to store your password, it's usually stored within the browser in a fairly secure fashion, but once again, not as secure as a standalone password manager. So we would definitely suggest to use a dedicated password manager. But in lieu of that, it's better to use the browser-based one than a sticky note. So.
Yeah, I second that.
Matthew Watring, you had a question. Go ahead, unmute and what's on your mind?
Yeah, so recently in the news, there's been this big hubbub about the Log4j vulnerability stuff, which I know is really more towards the web host server side of things as far as like the security ecosystem is concerned. But are there things that as consumers, as end users, as personal computer users that we should be aware of or on the lookout for when we're doing online shopping or browsing the web in regards to that vulnerability?
That's a very good question. Unfortunately, I think that as consumers, you probably cannot really do all that much other than just once again make sure that you're using kind of verified websites and reputable vendors. They're much more likely. The vulnerability that you just mentioned, the Log4j one, is going to be extremely widespread, and it's basically on the vendor side, on the server side of your connection. So it's going to be up to those vendors to patch the vulnerability. There isn't really a whole lot that consumer can do other than make sure that you're dealing with a reputable vendor and putting a little bit of trust in them that they will actually do the required patching in a timely manner. The patches for most of those vulnerabilities has been released even a while ago, even though the new ones are being discovered pretty much all the time. But it's as long as they stay on a kind of a good cadence in terms of updating their software, you should be fine. Maybe not specific to this vulnerability, but vulnerabilities in general. I think this is like one of the first ones we covered, I believe, number 2 that James talked about. Just exercise caution and also apply updates to your client-side software as well. After all, it's a kind of those are the two sides of the same coin. Vendors need to do something, you need to do something. But specific to Log4j, this is on the vendor side, just exercise caution.
Andrew, I had a quick question. You mentioned the USB ports, which I think is fascinating on many levels, and I think a lot of people don't realize that. There was even some mention of the chat in there, and you're saying use your charger that you bring from home. Is there any truth or danger to? Of course, the quality is always better with a name brand or using the charger that comes with your phone. But what about aftermarket that you buy on Amazon or in convenience stores or gas station kind of thing? Can those things be corrupt, or is it just a matter of them being cheap and not working very well?
Pretty much, yeah, all of them can be corrupt. So unfortunately, I'm going to sound like a broken record and refer to like reputable vendors and doing your research. And obviously, if you're buying a Google or Microsoft or, for example, Apple device, yes, the charger that comes with it is probably the best one to use. But clearly, you can be on the go, you can forget it at home. So it's perfectly fine to go to a reputable store and buy a charger from a reputable company. And in most cases, if you're buying a charger that is going into the power, outlet, you're fairly safe because there are, very few or pretty much no known exploits of the power grid where they can actually, access your phone and siphon your data. As far as USB goes, I mean, any USB connection, when you plug it into something, that is a mini or microcomputer of some sort that actually has some hardware and some software. So it's very easily corruptible. Like in an airport, for example, hackers will just plug it into the USB port or ports, hack them, and just go away. And then when you plug in, you basically receive that malware from them. There were also some publicized, physical connection threats where they did a quick, survey of the airport. They basically looked behind the USB plugs and discovered that additional devices were installed. Nobody quite knows how it happened, but it was in mass. So just kind of be advised that, USB port, you're connecting into another computer with all the associated dangers. When you're plugging it into the power outlet, there is nothing but power there. Nothing's coming from it other than that. Nothing is going any other direction.
Fascinating. Thank you very much. I greatly appreciate that.
Sure thing.
Any other questions in the chat room or hands raised at all?
I also really appreciate, that Daniel McGuire, making a comment that, that the password managers, the dedicated ones usually also have kind of additional capabilities. They will be multi-platform. You can use them on different devices. All that information is portable. You're storing your passwords there. They're securely stored online, and you can access them from multiple devices, from multiple different platforms. So that's a kind of added benefit. I mean, if you're using something that is browser-based or specific to a particular operating system vendor, you'll most likely be locked to that specific OS or that specific device. All right.
Okay, I think that looks good to me. Again, thank you very, very much, Andrew and James, for taking time to put this together and joining us here tonight, and everyone that joined us as attendees to take in this valuable information for the holidays and beyond. So everyone stay safe, stay healthy, have great holidays, Happy New Year, and we'll say good night for the evening.
Be cyber safe, not cyber sorry.
There you go, Andrew. Thanks again. Everyone have a great night.